The owner, he kept mentioning that he wanted to build tea houses in his landscape. And I was very excited about it and never knew what he meant. And I said, okay, what do you want? He said, I want 3 tea houses. And I said, well, tell me what a tea house is. He said, well, they each have their own purpose. One is for meditation, one's for sleep, and one's for work. When we started the design, we built models, almost like matchbook size models. And I probably did like 8 or 9 models of what the exploration of what a tea house might be. Would it be like a band shell looking out over the canyon? Would it dig into the ground? Would it be lifted off the ground? And finally we settled on the one that was so simple and elemental, which is a glass box supported by 2 vertical core elements of concrete lifted off the ground. So this first little tea house, it just hovers over the ground. What you're looking at is wide flange beams at the floor and wide flange beam at the roof. And they're cantilevered off of these U-shaped little concrete core elements. And that allows us to keep this building off the ground and have the whole building essentially float. And that was the main goal, is to keep these things really light and delicate. The buildings disappear. They truly disappear. You see reflections and you see leaves and branches on concrete, and the buildings just disappear into nature. The first tea house is for meditation, but it's also for serving tea, drinking tea, meditating, having a quiet conversation with somebody. Now, the first thing you may notice when you enter is that the floor is not a floor, but it's a deck. And it's actually open boards. They're not even tongue and groove decking. This is actually recycled from a wooden deck. This is for serving tea. Yes, it's for serving tea and having quiet conversation with someone. It's fairly low tech. You don't see any televisions in here, no flat screens, no major sound systems, anything like that. But there is tea. Tea and a couple of seats and a lot of glass and a great view. And quiet. When somebody says a tea house, what is it? Is it a traditional Japanese tea house? No, not at all. I mean, I think it gives you a chance to be with yourself, to contemplate, to be in nature. You'll see one of the themes of the project is kind of a Japanese saying called wabi-sabi, which is the contrast of perfect things to things that aren't so perfect, and the things that aren't so perfect end up looking really beautiful because they're not so perfect. So there's a writing desk that is very natural, quite beautiful. And the concrete is board formed, wire brush to show the grain, skylit from above. We do a lot of concrete. Usually we try to get it as smooth as you can, as perfect as you can, and concrete's never perfect. But in this case, all the imperfections were welcomed. I think every time you come here, like I noticed that you were photographing the skylight and it's full of leaves, right? And I think most architects would want to clean that off and make it look pristine, right? And I looked at it and thought, wow, that looks great today. It's all part of the spirit of this place. As you look from this tea house up to the next one, you see the site is a little subtle difference because the site is sloping. It's built into a tree, beautiful tree. So you'll see the wide planks on the floor of this tea house. There are also gigantic decking boards that were salvaged and reused on this project. There's a bed here. This is for sleeping.
So is it a tea house?
We call it a tea house. Is it for tea? Not necessarily.
How do you define tea house then?
Little buildings in nature. That's what it is for me. I'm probably completely wrong. I probably haven't studied my history of tea houses, but these are little buildings in nature. And some of it comes inside. There's a hummingbird. It's like flying in this tree, and you see it silhouetted. I don't see it right now. It's really beautiful.
I just saw something.
Yeah, I saw a bee. I think people understand designing with nature, building with nature. the indoor connected to outdoors. And what's the nicest way of doing it is by having it completely open to nature. So we have these incredibly beautiful glass walls, and they're very sharp, they're very pristine, but right outside the glass, it's all nature. This is a pretty exciting thing that you don't often see. I don't think you would do this if you had little toddlers around, but it's quite nice when you're here by yourself. And it also ventilates the space really fast.
It's a window. I mean, it's not a door.
It's a door, it's a window. It's not a door to walk through, that's for sure. But it's definitely a big window. This tea house, it's a core. So on one side of the building, there's this little tower element of concrete which lifts the building off the ground. And on the other side of the building, there is a little corridor of concrete walls. And those concrete walls form a bathroom that connects through to a working space. So again, it's very natural. It's concrete, wooden tub, wooden floor, pebbles, and a view window for when you're soaking with a very nice view.
And the wood?
It's a deck.
I didn't really put a boundary for the shower, so I have to drain the water. So this is actually tiled beneath, like a shower pan. So water just go through and drain off the floor.
It's a very beautiful Euro showers. You just didn't want to close anything in.
No.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, no boundaries.
It's the only house I've ever done when the skylight gets dirty, I just don't care. Because it's just kind of what this place is all about. Normally, you want everything pristine and polished and clean, but not here. And so this would really be the sort of the back entrance into the last tea house, which we really should enter from outside.
Why don't I go the other way then?
Should we do that?
Yeah.
And this is for work.
So this one is actually a home office?
It's a home office, yes, this is a home office. And it has a home office working table. It looks like a Flintstone table. But then it has these little flipper doors that look like little Flintstone pieces of steel. And you open them up and you have wire management hidden in your Flintstone table. And then the legs of this table were leftover steel beams. They were left over from the framing of the stairways to get you into the tea houses. You do wonder if you tried to do work here, could you get anything done? And you'd probably get a lot of creative ideas, but could you really produce much because you'd be so distracted by that?
This be replicated on a not too expensive.
We have talked about prefab, something kind of like this. We did a prefab house, that was finished about a little over a year ago, and it was pretty well received, and it was a prototype house. We could do something like this. If you keep it down to something you can drive on the highway, okay, and then you can lift into place with a crane, you could probably do that and probably save a lot of money too by building it in a factory. We haven't done it, we haven't tried to do it. We've had so many people ask us if we would do a tea house for them. And many people say they'd like to have homes just like this tea house.
But why not more glass? Does the glass become really expensive? Or why wouldn't somebody do this as a home?
Well, in I think it was about the mid-'70s when at least California became really energy conscious and the codes changed and something was introduced called Title 24. And that was sort of the end of the modernist house that we knew from the 50s, 60s. All those glass houses sort of ended. And what happened was the state prescribed how much glass you could have in your building at that time. And it was a very small amount. So the idea of glass going from floor to ceiling, wall to wall disappeared, and openings became punched holes in buildings. Since about 1995, there's been sort of a resurgence of modern architecture, probably throughout the country, but I see it a lot on the West Coast. And that is an emphasis on opening up the boundaries, getting wall-to-wall glass, making it disappear, connecting inside to outside. So it's all coming back, and we're finding a way to do it. We're doing it with, you know, super energy efficient heating systems, cooling systems, protecting the glass, all the things that you need to do to be able to build and using extremely sophisticated glazing, double, triple glazing, you know, insulated glass, highly insulated buildings. So we're bringing it back, but for a long time it disappeared. So people see this and they say, wow, you know, it's wall to wall to wall to wall, floor to ceiling. And it is unusual today. But it's being rediscovered.